Even in Stalin's time there was collective leadership. The Western idea of a dictator within the communist setup is exaggerated. Misunderstandings on that subject are caused by lack of comprehension of the real nature and organization of the communist power structure. Stalin, although holding wide powers, was merely the captain of a team, and it seems obvious that Khrushchev will be the new captain. The public defamation of Stalin launched at the 20th Soviet Party Congress in February 1956, setting off a chain of repercussions that continue to threaten the cohesion of the Soviet bloc, confronting Soviet propagandists with a challenge of extraordinary magnitude. This same document in various other places describes the way the Bolsheviks treated him after his death as denigration, defamation and scapegoating. Page 1 para 1 The course of de-Stalinization in Soviet domestic propaganda through June 1956. Page 1 para 1, page 2 para 4, page 5 para 2, page 6 para 2, page 3 para 3 to 4. By denying Stalin's much vaunted infallibility, he, Khrushchev, cast doubt on the infallibility of the party itself. Stalin's father image satisfied a profound psychological need of the average Russian, who is deeply shocked that this image, laboriously built up for almost 30 years, is suddenly and violently shattered. We therefore recommend that political and propaganda action be taken before the situation in the Soviet Union and in the international communist movement has a chance to stabilize. Such action might take the form of a pincers movement, with one white and one black jaw. The objective of both would be to exacerbate existing dissensions and to advance the debunking of the Stalin myth. The white jaw of the proposed pincers would center in a top-level policy statement, to be set forth either by the President, or by Congress in a joint resolution, or by an appropriate inter-allied body, such as the Atlantic Council. The themes dramatically proclaimed by such a statement would then have to be further developed, repeated and disseminated by all available communications media of the Western world. Latest developments of the anti-Stalin trend in international communism, interpretation and possible exploitation. March 20, 1956. Page 3 para 4 to 6. Page 4 para 1. All the workers that we met appeared to be very proud of their country and their individual and collective works, and kept asking how we like Russia, compared to the other countries that we had visited. They talked enthusiastically about working for the betterment of the nation, and about peaceful living in order to keep up a steady progress towards health and enjoyment. Organization of the medical profession, administration of public health, and status of medical sciences in the Soviet Union. Page 51 para 6. 75% of Russians say Soviet era was greatest time in country's history. Poll. The People's Soviets must be in touch with political, trade union and mass organizations. The Sofia Urban People's Soviet and the Okrug and Okhalia People's Soviets must account for their activities at a public meeting at least once a year. The People's Soviets in towns which are directly subordinate to their respective Okrug People's Soviets, as well as urban, rayon and rural People's Soviets, must give an account of their activities at a public meeting of the voters at least twice a year. Those present may ask questions, criticize or make recommendations about the activities of the People's Soviets. Bulgarian laws on the People's Soviets and on electing deputies to People's Soviets. Page 3 para 4. Deputies must maintain permanent ties with their electors, must take an active part in the work of the People's Soviet, and must carry out the work given them by the Soviet and by the permanent commissions. They must regularly explain to the voters and to the population the important decisions of the People's Soviet and its executive committees and the ordinances of higher state organs. Deputies must regularly account to the voters and must keep them informed of the work of the People's Soviet and of the deputies' part in the activity. A deputy who does not justify the faith of the voters, who radically changes the ideas and programs on which he was a candidate, or who damages discipline in his party group or organization, may be recalled upon the petition of the organization for which he was a candidate. The decision to recall a deputy is made by agreement of more than half of all the elected deputies of the People's Soviet to which he was elected. Bulgarian laws on the People's Soviets and on electing deputies to People's Soviets. Page 5 para 8 to 10. Elections are conducted on the basis of universal, equal and direct secret ballot. All citizens of Bulgaria 18 years of age or over, regardless of race, national origin, sex, religious conviction, educational qualification, place of residence, social origin, or property, with the exception of disenfranchised criminals, may participate in elections for People's Soviets and may be elected. All citizens have one vote and participate in elections on an equal basis. Women participate in elections and may be elected on the same basis as men. One election district is formed for each 5,000 inhabitants. Bulgarian laws on the People's Soviets and on electing deputies to People's Soviets, page 10 para 6, page 12 para 2. At the polling place, the voter leaves on the ballot only the name of the candidate for whom he votes, crossing out the names of the other candidates. Deputies were elected through election districts. This allowed the voters in a given district to know their elected deputy, to whom they may appeal in case of need. It also allowed the elected deputy to know his election district and his voters, so that he could maintain closer contact with them and know their needs, and so that he could account to the people through the People's Soviet. Bulgarian laws on the People's Soviets and on electing deputies to People's Soviets, page 17 para 14, page 18 para 8. Although there were complaints about the high prices of consumer goods and similar daily problems, we never heard any Soviet express criticism directed against the regime. There is little open discontent with their government among the Soviet people. There were only favorable comments about Stalin from Soviet workers. They feared that life in the Soviet Union could take a turn for the worse after Stalin dies. Lenin was also always praised in such phrases as the savior of the Soviet people. The Soviets often spoke with pride of the large construction projects which have been accomplished there, such as the river dams, hydroelectric works and the buildings in Moscow. They are also favorably impressed with projects to control natural elements such as changing the course of rivers and irrigating the steppes, which have recently been announced. Free medical care and equal rights for women were also aspects of Soviet society which apparently met with approval of the Soviet population. Other developments considered as positive achievements were the victory of the USSR in World War II and its post-war reconstruction. Also, there were some Soviets who even believed in the truthfulness of Soviet claims to Soviet priority in fields of science and technology. These persons, who were young and well-educated, were proud of these achievements. The Soviets apparently accepted their election system as entirely normal and believed it to be democratic. They evidently were convinced that these elections and their participation in these elections were important. Announcement of election returns created considerable excitement among the Soviet employees on Gordomia Island. In particular, every effort was made to complete as soon as possible the polling at local election points. Local election officials evidently strove to report 100% participation earlier than neighboring election districts. Soviet attitudes towards political problems, April 30, 1953, page 2 para 1-6, page 3 para 1. Yugoslavia's self-management system is based on the theory that political, social and economic decisions should be made by those who are directly concerned, with no need for specific approval from above as long as such decisions conform to national guidelines. In its embryonic state, self-management, or the Workers' Council system, was limited to economic enterprises, but it has since been extended to social, scientific, and political activities. Yugoslavia, 20 Years of Self-Management, page 5 para 1. The dispute underscored the growing role trade unions play in Yugoslavia's political life. Throughout 1970 they had sought to dispel the impression that they were mere transmission belts for party policy, and union officials wasted no time in denouncing the lobbying in parliament against the proposed wage limitation. Trade Union Secretary Marijan Razic personally and vigorously addressed the assembly arguing against the measure in its original form. Worker support for the government's proposed constitutional reforms, however, was evident at the Second Self-Management Congress, held in Sarajevo the first week in May. The 2,100 delegates strongly endorsed the reforms and used the occasion to press for greater political and economic power for the workers. They urged more worker influence over the investment decisions of their firms, equal pay throughout the country for those working on the same job, across-the-board wage and pension increases and extensive social welfare projects. During the first half of 1971, public participation in government has grown rapidly, infusing new vigor and vitality into the country's political life. The once quiescent mass organization, the Socialist Alliance of Working People of Yugoslavia, has suddenly become a forum in which the voice of the people can be heard. It is in the thick of constitutional debate because of its responsibility for arranging public meetings on the proposed amendments. Meetings are used as the forum for open debates on the constitutional amendments and the organization's concomitant drive to strengthen ties with communist parties in the West. Weekly Summary Special Report Yugoslavia, The New Revolution, page 9 para 2-4. Workers are becoming more articulate, and strikes, or work stoppages as they are euphemistically called, have become a highly effective means of gaining demands. Yugoslavia, 20 Years of Self-Management, page 8 para 3. In late December 1967 the students at the University of Zagreb succeeded in defeating a party-backed candidate for student pro-rector of the school. The election of Catholic nationalist Ivan Sakake dumbfounded university party officials. Weekly Summary Special Report Yugoslavia The New Revolution page 10 para 3. The concept of self-management has also taken hold in the universities, resulting in an unbalanced division of power between the administrative staffs and faculty/students. The Republic Assembly amended Serbia's public university law last July to allow faculty and students a free hand in the election of deans and rectors. Yugoslavia, 20 Years of Self-Management page 9 para 4. The self-management system has by this time been introduced into virtually every element of Yugoslav society. Even prisoners are encouraged to form councils in order to increase their production and to prepare themselves better to fit into a self-managed society when they are released. Yugoslavia, 20 Years of Self-Management page 9 para 1. The 1963 Constitution formally introduced the policy of limited terms and rotation in office, mainly in the elective posts, to foster the infusion of new blood into the political system and to counter bureaucratism and routinism. The 1967 election brought a turnout of 89% of the registered voters, and also the defeat of several regime-backed candidates. In contested elections at the republic level, approximately 30% of the regime's candidates failed to win. The surprise winners generally were older ex-partisan heroes who opposed the regime's economic reform program. National Intelligence Survey 21 Yugoslavia, Government and Politics 1967 page 12 para 7, page 33. Page 37 para 3. It gave people a sense of participation in government and political life. Isolation or poverty were no bars to membership, and all sectors of the population were urged through propaganda campaigns and social pressure to join at least one of the groups. The average Cuban has derived considerable pride in his country's achievements. The Cuban Economy, Model for Third World Development. Page 22 para 1-2.